I'm setting out this container of peanuts so I can see if the crows in my backyard can open it up. The first bird to show up before the crows was this very confused blue jay. Blue jays and crows are both part of the corvid family, one of the most intelligent bird families in the world. Crows have been known to solve various puzzles, and their intelligence can be compared to a 7-year-old human. This blue jay sat around for a while, continuously pecking at the container. Not cool. Then the crows showed up. After about a minute of walking towards the container, and some extremely cautious crow inspection, we had an attempt. He seemed like he knew what to do now and kept pecking at the container. And after a few more pecks, he successfully opened the container. He took as many peanuts as he could and then flew off. Today I found this little guy on my driveway. This is a completely harmless and non-venomous black racer. They're pretty common throughout the eastern USA. They eat everything from mice, frogs, lizards, rats, and believe it or not, venomous snakes. He's trying to convince me that he's a rattlesnake, and they for sure live up to their name. I'm setting out this bowl of water in the middle of the woods to see what wild animals will use it. Here's all the cool animals that showed up. The first bird to show up was this brown thrasher. He enjoyed a well-deserved bath. In the spring and summer heat, fresh water is a necessity for wild animals. They need it not just to stay hydrated, but also to help them regulate their body temperature. Before the sun went down, this catbird stopped by. Some of the animals that came to the bowl of water surprised me, like North America's only animal with a pouch. The next animal to show up that surprised me was this black racer. These are a super common snake throughout the eastern USA, and they're really good for rodent control. The next animal to come to the bowl of water was this eastern gray squirrel. It was really fascinating to see all the animals that came to the bowl of water. At night, this mouse stopped by, and the little guy was super thirsty. I'm setting out this bowl of water in the middle of the woods to see what wild animals will use it. Here's all the cool animals that showed up. The first bird to show up was this mourning dove. He went straight for the water. As the weather heats up, wild animals depend on fresh water more than ever. It helps them to stay hydrated and maintain their body temperature. Some of the animals that ended up coming to the bowl of water surprised me, like this raccoon. And this house wren. This is the first one that I've ever seen in my yard. After the house wren, this northern cardinal stopped by. This eastern gray squirrel came for a few sips of water, and on his way out, he stepped on my camera. I found this bird's nest in the lid of my propane tank, so I set out a camera to see what built it, and right away I found out that the nest belonged to these Carolina wrens. For the first few days, not a whole lot happened. The female kept the eggs warm, and the male would occasionally stop by to check on things. One morning, after around 2 weeks of incubation, one of the eggs started to hatch, and that very same morning, the male started bringing tons of food back and forth throughout the day. The parents kept coming regularly with more and more food, and the baby was growing extremely fast. After nearly 2 weeks of tireless parenting, the young Carolina wren began exploring. When the parents noticed the chick's curiosity, they started encouraging it to take its first steps beyond the nest. And with a little help from its devoted parents, the little wren finally built up the courage to leave the nest. Today I flipped 5 logs. Here's what I found. Under the first log, check that out, there's an eastern red-backed salamander. I didn't film myself flipping it, but under the second log, there was this pretty chill frog. I'm pretty sure this little guy is a great tree frog, but I'm no frog expert, so let me know if I'm wrong. I'm gonna put this little guy next to the log I found him under so he can go back under by himself. Next log, absolutely nothing. Under the fourth log, I found this larva. Not 100% sure what this is, so let me know in the comments. Under the fifth log, I found this cool spider. I'm pretty sure this is a wolf spider. As I was leaving for my hike, I also found this cool mushroom. If any of you know what kind it is, please let me know. I left this hamster wheel out in the forest to see if any wild animals would spin on it. I've had it out in these woods since the beginning of the summer, and many cool animals have come to check it out. A lot of squirrels hung out in the surrounding area, along with a bunch of deer. This deer in particular gave the wheel a few sniffs. During the nighttime, this opossum came by, but showed no interest in the wheel. And after the opossum, this white-tailed deer came by and gave the wheel a few sniffs. This squirrel came up to the wheel, but then he left. This fawn came over to the area, but didn't stick around too long. And one of my favorite visits from this summer was this eastern gray squirrel. Instead of running on the wheel, this little guy spun it from the outside. It was really cool to see a wild animal interact with the wheel. Another really cool visit was this black bear. He obviously realized he was way too big to run on the wheel, because he also paid a visit to the giant one, and unfortunately he was too big to run on this one also. So now I'm wondering, is there such a thing as a bear wheel? I left this giant hamster wheel out in the forest to see if any wild animals would spin on it. I set it up around 8 months ago, and many cool animals have come to check it out. White-tailed deer visited the area regularly, and they seem pretty curious. One night this flying squirrel got on top of the wheel and used it as a launch pad. This deer came over to check out the wheel, but she was obviously way too big to run on it. She gave it a few sniffs but didn't seem too interested. Throughout the summer, one of the most common visitors were fawns. They seemed interested in something so unusual in their natural habitat. This mouse also came to check out the wheel, but he was too small to spin on it. And this raccoon passed by, but paid no interest in the wheel at all. But then the squirrels came around, and they were so interested in it that they actually ran on it. When I first saw this, I honestly couldn't believe it. It was really fascinating to see a wild animal run on a wheel. Activity like this can help wild animals relieve stress naturally. And as you can see, the little guy looks pretty chill. He played on the wheel a bit longer, but then he left. And by far one of the coolest visits was this black bear. He went over to the wheel and gave it a few sniffs, and he actually seemed kind of interested. But unfortunately, he's too big for the wheel, so now I'm googling bear-sized treadmill. I'm setting out this bird seed mix and these sunflower seeds to see which one the birds in my yard prefer more. And at first, it didn't seem that the birds cared that much. Some visited the mix, and some visited the sunflower seeds. But after a little more time went by, it became more obvious that the birds preferred the sunflower seeds way more. Some birds even getting a little aggressive over it. And the reason the birds would much rather eat the sunflower seeds is because the mix is full of a bunch of filler seeds that the birds will never even eat. And after I looked over all the videos, it turns out that the birds visited the mix 30 times, while they visited the sunflower seeds around 70 times. So if you want to see birds at your feeders more, I definitely recommend going with the sunflower seeds. I put a mirror at my bird feeder to see how the birds would react to seeing their reflection. And the first bird to show up was this dark-eyed junco, but he didn't pay any attention to the mirror. And after the junco, this black-capped chickadee stopped by. He chirped at his reflection a little, but then grabbed the seed and flew off. The next birds to show up were these house finches. They hung out at the feeder for a little while, and one of them started pecking at the mirror. But they didn't stick around long, and then they both flew off. After a bit, the black-capped chickadee returned, and then this mourning dove took over filming. I left this camera in front of this bowl of water to see what wild animals would use it. Here's the cool animals that showed up. The first animal to come check out the bowl of water was this eastern gray squirrel. The water was frozen, so he found a hole in the ice to drink through. The next visitor was this downy woodpecker. He came over to the bowl and found a little hole that caught some water. I can tell that this little guy's a male because of the red spot on the back of his head. Female downy woodpeckers do not have that. After the woodpecker, this tufted titmouse stopped by. He hopped into the bowl and took a little bath. Even during the cooler months, birds will still regularly use a bird bath. After the tufted titmouse, this Carolina wren stopped by. He hopped in, but I think it was a bit too cold for him. Later, these eastern bluebirds showed up. But then a cardinal joined them, and they were not happy.